Hey mom, yeah, I've heard that mobile is becoming a big deal today. Oh, you saw an article in today's paper about it. Okay. Yeah, no, you don't need to send me a clipping of of it. No, that's okay. You know what, mom? I've got to go. I'm doing a show. All right, see you later. Love ya. Welcome to episode 2 of DYC Live. Quick interactive show where you get to submit your questions either live while we're broadcasting, or you can email show at Do You Convert as well and submit your questions in. A couple quick little ground rules. One, this is a show about rapid analysis. We're not going to spend 15 minutes or longer diving into your question. It's about getting in and getting out. Try to cover as much as we can in a short amount of time. This show is about improving digital marketing and digital creative for home builders and developers. So it's not about fixing people. Fixing people is Dr. Phil or some other show. And so I just act like your mom was watching and let's all get better together. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in. Question number 1 comes from Melissa in Dallas, Texas, who says, do you think it's a turnoff to request the state of residence on your online submission form so you have knowledge of where the inquiry is coming from without having to ask via email before starting correspondence? Okay, so let me share my screen here and let's take a look. Now this is not, Melissa does not work for Pulte, but I just want to pull this up so we could take a look at it so I can show you what she's talking about. And that is on the contact form here, there is a required field that says state of residence. And that has to do with some legalities that different states have. And you can go to this website, justice.org, ATR competitive real estate, to pick the state and see what regulations are out there. But some builders, especially larger builders that have apparently lots of paid legal staff, require this question to be answered. And so her question is this a put off? I don't know that the question itself is a put off. I will say, that there are other large home builders. This is the same area. So this is a community in Columbus, Ohio for Ryan Homes, who I just pulled up at random, and Pulte. So also in Columbus, both in the same place, one requiring it, one not. So I think there's a question of, do we have to ask that question first before we have any type of correspondence? Perhaps, maybe, and Ryan Homes, their initial response says, hey, before we can go further, I need to know where you live. My guess is that they don't, from having shopped them myself fairly recently for our last survey. So I don't think so, but I also want to just say that anytime we add additional questions to a form, whether it's on a mobile site or a desktop site, or even a Facebook ad, which I'll show you an example of here, the more questions that we ask, the more complicated we make the form, the less likely it is that people are going to complete it, especially if those other questions are required. That's why typically we would just say, hey, first and last name and email address. Phone number is optional unless it's a coming soon neighborhood or we're worried about having too many leads, then we may limit it. So let me just show you another example though. And this is a Facebook lead form, right? So it's also very simple because it's part of Facebook ads. And initially we had added this one question just to try to get a little bit of qualifying information about when they were looking to move. Giving them 4 predetermined answers. The problem is with Facebook ads, you have to answer every field. Everything is required. So just by adding this one question, the lead count dropped by 70% because it was a required field that they had to click on and tell us information. So when we redid it, in this instance here, just pulling in the information from Facebook automatically, it's a lot better. Now, there's other ways. We don't have time in today's show to get into how we can set up the ad structure to grab that information. For example, making multiple versions of an ad separated by geography. So when they look at an ad for this area of town, we don't have to ask them if that's the area of town they're interested in. That's where they are looking at when they saw the ad. And so we can just pass that information through. So there's more than one way to skin the cat. I would just say anything that we don't really have to have on there, we don't want to have on there because it just makes it more complicated. Okay, question number 2. Told you it's going to be rapid fire. Steve from Seattle, Washington says, hey, what is a reasonable amount to be spending on AdWords per month in a competitive market like mine? Yeah, Seattle is competitive and just continues to, We know builders there who have raised prices by $50 or even $100,000 in a month in a neighborhood and just keep right on selling. We currently spend around $4,000. Wow, that's a lot. And yet Google keeps telling me I should spend more. Help, I need your advice. Okay, Steve, so I'm not going to go into great detail here. I've zoomed in on the screen so that we can preserve the privacy here of this particular builder. But what you're talking about is absolutely true. Google is always going to, or very, very often, going to say, hey, you could just give me a little bit more and I'll make sure that you get more results from it. A couple things you can look at to see if that's the case. One is your click-through rate. Click-through rate can be kind of like an on-site salesperson's cancellation rate. If someone sold 20 houses in a year and had no cancellations, good sales manager or good division manager is going to say, hey, we could have probably taken some risk there. Are you only writing the deals that are the easiest to write, the best credit, etc.? Because we want to have a little bit of a cancellation rate to show that we're at least stretching. Click-through rate being ultra high like you're seeing here, one, it looks impressive, but we are probably leaving some money on the table. Now in this case, we're being as efficient as possible because this builder doesn't necessarily have an excess amount of home sites to sell, right? They've got a lot of stuff coming down the pike, so we don't need to spend a lot more. But if your click-through rate is below 1% for sure, you're spending too much. You got to clear out the decks and worry about getting more efficient until you get above probably 2% at least. So that's one thing to look at. Of course, your average cost, if that's going up or down, and look at your current position, right? So we are getting, in this example here, 22.6% click-through rate, which again isn't necessarily a great thing, but the average position's 2. We're getting 413 clicks, and we're only spending $800, and this builder is in Dallas, Texas. My rule of thumb for most campaigns, even in really competitive markets like a Texas, like a Seattle, like a Raleigh, Austin, is you probably don't need to be spending $4,000 unless your geography is just really spread out and you've got a lot to cover. Most of the time, between $1,500 and $3,000 is a really good sweet spot to be in. And so again, that's just a rule of thumb, but want to give you as much help as I can, Steve, as we look at that. And while we're talking about how much money we're spending and where we're spending it, if you'll drop me a note, show@doyouconvert.com, I'll send this quick simple spreadsheet out. One of the things that's really helpful beyond looking at dollars and cents is to look at percentage of your spend. And so when you plug it in here, if I just put in $10 in signage, $10 in online, you'll see that it's showing me that 50% of my money is going to online right now and 50% of my money is going to signage. Looking at percentages is really, really helpful, especially when you just stop and think about where are all my leads coming from? What is the sources that are driving me traffic? And then you look at where your money's going and it can tell you a lot. So I don't have recommended percentages or anything on this sheet. It's just a very simple spreadsheet for you to use as you're making budgeting decisions at the end of the year. All right, let's move on into our tech corner. This is when we get a chance to spotlight a piece of technology that can help you make great content or improve your marketing efforts. And today I've got something to show you that is probably my favorite tool of everything that I have other than my smartphone. And that is this guy right here. This is an Osmo camera. I'll turn it on, and this is GoPro just came out with one that's very similar, so you can go look at theirs. I know and I love this guy. The angle of the lens is a little bit better, I think, than a GoPro. But when I hold down the button, I can move around and it keeps the camera steady, right? And even as I'm going up and down, it will level it out, and that really smooths out all of your footage. If we look at their website here, you can see that the newest version, which is also fantastic, we gave away one of these at the summit, so I can't show it to you now, lets you just plug in your phone instead of this camera on top. So this is a 4K camera. It's tremendous quality, but this mobile version, right? You're not gonna hit a feature gap because when your new phone comes out, you've just upgraded your camera on your Osmo as well. One of the little tips though is grab this guy. This is a little Rode microphone. I'll include show notes when we repost this on YouTube and the website later of where you can go to get these. But this is a little microphone that when you open this up, it will just clip right here. And so now as I'm pointed at my subject, this is a shotgun mic grabbing the audio. So this is perfect for testimonials, shooting stuff in a model home with a salesperson. It really is the real deal. And the best part, again, is the price. $286 for the phone version, the Osmo Mobile. Again, besides a smartphone, probably the best tool that you could get right now for under 300 bucks. All right, so don't forget, submit your own questions ahead of time, and we will pick as many as we can to get through. And thanks again so much, everyone, for hopping on. Love seeing the comments. Make sure to share this so that other folks can join in as well next time. If you want to make sure you get the notifications, click that little caret icon next to it and just make sure you're subscribed to live updates. And we'll see you all soon. Have a great week.